One of the things that you do if you're high in anxiety is to stabilize your sleep-wake cycles. So get up at the same time, go to bed at the same time, and eat at the same time. Make sure that you eat breakfast, and a big breakfast too, that's heavy on fat and protein. Then also, if you're feeling particularly anxious, try eating something, not carbohydrates, and see if that helps, because you might be somewhat permanently dysregulated. You should shield yourself to some degree from news sources and sources of bad news, especially catastrophic news, because most of it isn't news. It's the repetition of things that we already know full well. It's just too much. If you're depressed and anxious, it's just not something that you need. It's not helpful to you. I mean, I don't think you should bury your head in the sand, but constant exposure to the catastrophes of the world, especially when there's nothing that you can do about those catastrophes, even hypothetically, is something that can really destabilize people. One of the things that people who are low in agreeableness can do is to try to think of things they could do for other people and make that a practice. You know, like maybe once a week you could consciously do someone a favor, compassionate and polite. You know, that'll expand your personality rather than transforming it. So then maybe you could have the advantages of being disagreeable, which means you're tough-minded and skeptical and competitive. And then, you know, if your relationships improve, that can also improve your emotional stability, because one of the ways that people regulate their anxiety is by having people around them that they get along with. Because, you know, if you upset people, then they upset you. There's the angry you. And, you know, you've all come in contact with the angry you. It's rather rigid. That's the first thing you might say about it. It's impulsive and short-term. It doesn't think much about the past. It's not too concerned with long-term future consequences, and mostly it wants to be right. Sometimes, if angry you really gets out of hand, like it might in a battle, in a war, it might do things that you just can't imagine that you would do. Many, but not all, people who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, especially if it's battlefield related, get it because of something they did rather than something they saw or something that happened to them. And part of the reason that we like the circumstances to be normal is precisely so that we don't see those parts of people we don't want to see. If someone throws a dart at you, and then it's like you have a moral obligation to respond to that, right? And you can think about it as anger or something like that, but part of it also seems to be that you're ashamed if you don't respond. The idea is that, well, you know, if you don't respond harshly to something that's associated with disgust, then you bring dishonor on your entire family and maybe on your entire community. You don't have that many sources of power. You've got enthusiasm, that's a good one. Curiosity, interest, appreciation for beauty, you know. Anger is unbelievably useful. It's a tremendous reservoir of power, you know, and you don't want to suppress that. You want to harness it. People will push, especially pushy people. And if you can't, well, if you can't push back, they're going to walk all over you. They won't even notice, you know, because you'll just move. And they won't even notice that they pushed you over. So when you'll go home, you'll be all resentful and irritated and brood on it for a month. They'll cut you into pieces verbally, and they won't budge. And so you have to really ratchet up your preparation before you can withstand that. You got to get prepared for that, and it's no joke. You know, there's some very, very, very rock hard people out there. Write down everything that makes you angry, and you're going to think, well, some of those things that make me angry are stupid. It's like, yeah, probably. That's not the question here. We're not trying to figure out if you're reasonable or not. Of course you're not, because who is? So you're not. The first thing that you'll figure out is that some of those things just shouldn't make you angry. It's like time to grow the hell up, you know, and get over that. But then there's other things on there, and maybe you can talk to someone about that. You think, well, this makes me angry. Should it? You talk to someone, they say, no, you should. Some other things that make you angry because you're being taken advantage of, or you're allowing yourself to be taken advantage of, or you're taking advantage of yourself, or you're not objecting when someone else is asking you to do something you don't really want, like there's something going on. And so with those things, you figure out, well, what would you rather have? Then you think, well, let's take one of those things that I want and see if I can ask for it. You have to negotiate. What's the other person willing to do? You need to know what you want and need, and then you need to communicate it to them, and then you need to negotiate a solution. And that's how you get more assertive. And you start small. It's like, I'm irritated and annoyed that this isn't happening, and here's something that you could conceivably offer me, and this is what I'm willing to do in return, and could we see if that works? It's not a zero-sum game. You could both gain, like truly, because wouldn't it be a lovely marriage if your wife could ask you what she wanted and you could deliver, and you could ask her what you wanted and she'd deliver, and both of you were happy about that. Tell the truth about what you're angry about, but also tell the truth to yourself about what you want, and then start with little negotiations in that direction, and you'll get better and better at it. It's really worth doing, because otherwise you carry around all that resentment. Well, I'm afraid to say what I want. It's like, fair enough. Who isn't? How afraid are you of not saying what you want? Well, I'm used to that. Well, that doesn't mean it isn't horrible. You're just not accounting that as a risk, and you should. If you have to pick between those two risks, man, pick saying. So then at least you have a chance, and so does your partner. The other person just has never told them. You know, here's what's wrong and here's what I want. They expect them to know or something, and people just don't. They're just not that bright. How much do you think you can expect from me? I can barely do what you tell me to do, much less guess what it's supposed to be. So, like, give me a break and tell me what I can do badly that might be vaguely pleasing to you. Maybe if you got it right, someone would tell you they loved you once a week for the rest of your life. And mean it. And maybe that would be better than not having it at all. I had this friend, he bought his wife flowers. It took him 3 days to convince her that he bought them. That's not the right response. If someone does something good, stupidly and badly, then you say thank you. Because maybe they'll do it again. And maybe if they do it 20 times and you keep saying thank you carefully, they'll get confident at it, and then they'll get good at it. Well, if you just have a miserable life, you're just going to suffer stupidly and get bitter about it. How about making a sacrifice and seeing if you can please God and put being on track? God, that'd be something. To do? What could be better than that? What could possibly be better than that? Smart is a good thing, but I'll tell you, if you don't use it properly, it will devour you, just like all arbitrarily assigned talents, right? So you might have a talent, but it's your friend if you use it properly, and if you misuse it, it will be your enemy. He should find a job that he could find, working in a garage, working in a shop, something like that, because he had some mechanical ability, and that he should separate himself
from the arrogance that made him presume that such a job would be beneath him. Talking, bad things, gossiping behind the back of your co-workers. It's like you can take your menial position, self-described, and turn that into a very nice little slice of hell.